Okay. Yeah,
Woo!
boy.
My dog is pumped.
Yeah, man. Let's go. Hey, welcome to another installment of the Elite Thinking Club. I'm Chris, Jules, Julien, joined tonight by my co-host Michael and Liz. You guys good?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yo, I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm flipping freezing. Right? It's now got to the point where I'm actually testing my meter just to find out whether or not I'm being taken for a fool because it's going up now to the point where it's like I don't know, roughly about £6 a day, and I'm like £6 a day for gas. What is going on? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
we
just I
normally
just
have
can't.
ours off. So I'm sitting in my room at the moment. I'm on
Mm,
11 degrees.
mm.
Wow.
You're a
Just
hero. I'm
It's,
not at
um,
11 degrees, but
thermals. Get some of those, insulated duvet coat things that you plug in battery and then they warm up. Get some hot water bottles. That's what we
I've
need
got
to be doing.
I've got a rugby jumper, so it's all like fleece lined.
I won't lie. I sleep with a heated blanket.
Yeah,
What the
me
room
too.
yeah, I got my mattress, got a heated blanket, and I got the mattress cover, and I've got that on a timer, so it starts at about nine, half nine, turns off at about 11, half 11, and by then I should be well asleep. And I also got my heating on the timer, but I've purposely not done it tonight because I just want to test it out. Because one thing about that too is it's made me realize that there's 24 hours in a day, and for about between 6 and 7 of those hours a day is the only time I'm really awake in my house. How like when I'm baffled by that. Not baffled, that ain't true. Not baffled, but it's just like wow. How you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so averagely you're paying £1 an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, for gas, for
So
heating.
that's the same as you just throwing £1 out the window every hour.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm heating my home because I need the heat. Especially when you trace your DNA and your blood. You're like, fucking hell, I'm not supposed to be this cold. Well, maybe it is what it is. Like, but sometimes I look at some of those things like cold water exposure, cold air exposure, and all those things. And I think, yeah, by all means, boost your immune system. I remember when I was a soldier, I had the immune system of like a flipping like a rhino, and nothing could penetrate. Do you get what I'm saying? And then I don't know. It kind of made me think, am I getting weaker? Which then brings me on to a lot of thinking. I think way too much about this sort of shit. And one of the things that I know that you guys know that we talk about a lot is conspiracies. It is now a case of too many things are happening around me, and we spoke about this in a previous episode where I'm no longer a conspiracist. I'm more of an observantist, or observe it. You know what I mean? I'm observing it. I'm witnessing it. I'm living it. And not even like I'm observing. You know what I'm saying? And so it brings me on to a lot of things. So we're going to talk about a lot of things tonight, and welcome everyone everywhere. If you're just tuning in, we are the Elite Thinking Club. Michael, Liz, I got to ask one of you, who's the one with the white noise at the moment? Just want to cut that off if we can. It keeps fuzzing,
Let me
fuzzing.
mute my.
Okay, so it might be you, Liz. If we, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But we'll
I
just
haven't got anything on. I just let my dog out the back door. I don't know if it's the wind outside.
potentially. Yeah. I think it is. Michael, mute your mic one sec. Hey, a truth seeker, I see you go. You're all right. Thanks for being here again. Love that. Yeah, I don't know who it is, but we're trying to just sort out our mics. But yeah, switch it back on, Michael. Yeah, Michael, it's you. I don't know. Sorry, Michael. It's you, mate. Whatever it is causing that white noise sound, is there any way we can figure it out?
Here we go.
What is it? A
This
fan?
still
Do you have a fan on, or that's it? It's done.
It shouldn't be
Perfect.
any
Whatever that.
different to normal. Well, I'll just turn my mic down.
It might be that. It's really, really sensitive. Then that's a really sign of a really good mic, if anything. But it's so sensitive.
I'm not saying anything, but somebody told me at the start to turn it up.
I love that. Yeah, that was me. I asked Michael to turn the mic up so people can hear it. All right. So one of the first things that hit me this week, right? I was on the phone to a friend, and he said to me, Jules, he calls me Jules. Jules, you need to see this. I said, what? And he sent me this video of a guy in the House of Parliament. By the way, it was completely empty. It was like him and 3 other people there. No other MPs were there. And this was shocking because this was so important. This was like one of those major things that they should have been there for. I mean, why else are they around? Like, what are they more overly concerned with than what this guy had to say? And what he did was just release the data of all of the COVID vaccines and who's been affected by those vaccines. And it's quite scary and quite shocking. And it wouldn't surprise me if somewhere along the line, this episode might get muted, or it might get, not as much exposure. And it's just really, really important that we don't forget what we've been through, because one of the things when it comes to controlling a mass group of people is kill the spirit, kill the leaders, and you will then kill the rest, and we can't allow that to happen. So this is really important that we speak about this, just to make sure that we still ignite the fire of the fight, because over the period of time, bit by bit by bit, breaking down the spirit of the people separates us. We've no longer got the will to fight. So whether that be through nutrition, whether that be through heating, supply, just basically it just makes us more and more submissive, more and more and more, to the point where we've got no will to fight. We just sort of lay back and accept it, and that's not how we're meant to be, So we're going to go really deep into this. But Liz, Michael, have you seen that video of the member of parliament?
Yeah, I actually watched it live. I think you're talking about the Andrew, the MP that or Adrian. He held the talk, and it was live from 7 p.m. And I was shocked at the lack of people that attended, that didn't attend. But yeah, I think what he said was important. It's a lot of people, including myself, have been pushing for this and saying this for months and months and months, regarding the analysis prints from the pharmaceutical companies, such as Pfizer analysis prints, the AstraZeneca analysis prints, the Moderna analysis prints. They're easy for people to access themselves. You just literally type that into Google, Pfizer analysis print, and it will come up with all of the effects, every single effect, and the hundreds and thousands of people that have been affected by different things. And so many people are unaware. They didn't have informed consent, even though they thought they did by being given a leaflet when they went to get their injection. That wasn't informed consent, because those leaflets never had any of the data or any of the information regarding the possible effects of it. If it had have done, I think people would have probably said, actually, no jab for me, thanks.
Yeah, essentially what you're saying is the COVID vaccine caused more harm than COVID itself.
So the risk-benefit analysis it's not worth the risk in my eyes. To myself, I'm healthy, I'm fit, I'm not on any medication. I try and medicate naturally as much as I can. So for me, I'm quite conscious of what goes in my body. And therefore, having looked into this is not good for me. This is going to actually weaken my immune system. This is going to possibly give me blood clots. This is possibly going to give me myocarditis. I don't want any of those things. It could possibly make me drop down dead suddenly. No thanks. I haven't lived long enough to be dropping down dead.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, he also, which was really interesting in his speech, he also mentioned how a lot of the data was suppressed, and the British Heart Foundation was aware of studies regarding the vaccine causing heart inflammation, and it was never publicly known. It was not, the public were not told this whilst they were being rolled out, which they should have been.
Yeah, no, I totally understand.
It's a crime against humanity. I said it from the start. It's a crime against humanity.
Michael, what is your thoughts on that COVID vaccine?
Well, I mean, I don't begrudge anyone getting it if they want it, but I personally, I'd rather, like I've said this many times, I'd rather die of COVID than risk getting something I don't need. I've already had COVID probably twice, I think. Yeah, I felt shitty for a few days, but I got over it.
Yeah.
And then I'm good. So I'd rather just fight naturally than have some booster that they said was excellent and it's going down and down and down and down, and that's like 30% effective. Now you need boosters every year. No, I'll just be ill for a little while and then I'll get back on it. So,
yeah,
I think it's pointless.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising now. Don't get me wrong, they're still rolling out vaccines, but how many people aren't so in a rush to get it? And second to that, how many people now facing the cold weather we're going through here in the UK that they are still getting the same symptoms as COVID, but just accepting it's just the cold, just accepting it's, you know, it's normal to feel this way at this time of year. However, this time last year, when we were during lockdowns and the year before, you know, a lot of people were convinced it was COVID. They were just like, yeah, I think I've got the COVID, I've got the COVID. And it's just like, you ain't got flipping COVID, you've got a cold. Now, if you was to do a COVID test, it would just show that you have COVID, but you have just got a cold. Now, one of the things that really didn't surprise me, because we've been speaking about this conspiracy for a long time, how so many people are hushed, so many of our leaders are silenced, and so many people who whistleblow or speak out are completely wiped off the face of the earth. I'm very fortunate to have listened a little bit to a guy called Dr. Sebi, who no longer is with us for whatever reason. But this guy was talking about how you can make your body immune to bacteria, diseases, and germs just by simply making it go more alkali. So for those that are listening, obviously your body's built on a pH balance of acid and alkali. Normally it sits in around 7. But it doesn't mean you're going to die if you are too much alkali. However, if you are way too much acidic, what you are becoming is a perfect host for germs, bacteria, and diseases, cancer.
These, yeah.
So how does that work? Think of it like this. When you clean your work surfaces at home, you are in essence spraying them with complete alkali. It kills 99.9% germs and bacteria, whether that's like Dettol or whatever. So you spray it on and you wipe it down, boom, germ bacteria free. Your body works in the same sort of way. So if you make it more alkaline, if a germ or bacteria or a disease tries to get on you, it will get on you, don't get me wrong, but it will soon realize, holy fuck, I can't survive on this host, and it will soon leave because it will not survive, it will die. So those of us who understand that tend to, you know, have a diet that is more alkali, more than acid, and that way you are a little bit more immune to these germs, bacteria, and diseases. Hence why I personally didn't get the vaccine, because I thought, I haven't invested this much time in making my body so immune, just to be injected. You know, I don't feel like I need it, and I didn't need it. Here I am still a couple years later, alive, you know. But then at the same time, I have a neighbor who is now a widower because his wife had the vaccine and the next day she died. Liz,
Wow.
yes, he's very upset. I'm not speaking for him, but the man and his dog now, I spend time with him. But anyway, hear this. You spoke, Liz, about the inflammation of the heart, the arteries getting clogged and being inflamed, or being, what's the word? What's ibuprofen do? The opposite of inflammation.
Inflammation, yeah.
Yeah. So now that data has been released that the vaccine actually contributes to the clogging of arteries and the inflammation of your heart, a lot of people have died from that specific, that very, very specific cause of heart failure due to inflammation. That data needs to be known worldwide. I seriously believe that anybody who has had that vaccine needs to either be compensated or at least looked after with a little bit more care, knowing you've had the vaccine, therefore you need to come in and get a check, or we need to take extra care of you, or you need to be, you know what I'm saying? There needs to be something in place to just to care for those who unknowingly had that, because if they had known that is the cause of the vaccine, they probably wouldn't have wanted the vaccine. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
But then that brings me on to what we always talk about, which is the conspiracies of ruling elite agenda. You know, and I know that without all of the facts and proof, like I said, we're no longer conspiracists, we're just observationists. There are so many things in play globally that are keeping, because it's so huge, because the world is massive, we're at 9 billion capacity now. How do you control such masses? How do you ensure the survival? You know, one of my favorite questions, guys, that I always pose to the group is, could you kill 10,000 people to save 1 million people? I know that it's a very, very hard decision to make, simply because it's not like that. You can't make a decision like that. But that's sometimes the position you may find yourself in as a leader, as it goes. Now, the question is, in that 10,000 people, would you have your mother or your child or someone that you love dearly? Could you sacrifice them to save the masses? Now, let that ponder for a second. Let us know your answers in the comments if you want to. It's absolutely fine. But that's sometimes the position they're in. if we're reaching 9 billion capacity, I'm not saying the world isn't big enough, because there is plenty of
Mm.
land mass for that amount of people. But obviously, for you to go off on your own as a nomad, if you will, or just like a complete, loner somewhere, you'll find yourself without your luxuries, without your necessities, without your healthcare, without all them things. So it's not very smart to do that in essence. So we are all bunched in very, very tight knit areas. And that, I guess, is why we do what we do. We stay very communal. We stay very, together. How do you control the numbers from going up too high? And that brings me on to the conspiracy of a lot of things. And it may upset a lot of people, hence why I'm a bit hesitant to mention. But I do want to delve into it a little bit more. Liz.
No, you carry on. Sorry, I was listening to you.
I got two things.
Yes,
One,
Michael.
my answer is yes still to that question. And
Yes, you
two,
would kill the 10,000 to save a million.
yeah. I mean, to me, it's not a hard question. It's an easy question. You save 1 million people for 10,000. Because if you don't, 1 million people will die. So if you're doing the math on a scale, then that's winning.
I'd shoot myself.
But then that won't solve it.
I won't know,
the population
so
thing.
I'll be out of it. There'll be no guilt or anything.
The studies have shown at the moment that the population is going down, not up.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
But we've reached like 9 billion.
Yeah, but I see Elon Musk talking about this. So there's not as many children or teenagers as there is older people. So at the moment, we can't maintain our population. So the population is actually going down, not up. So we're going to end at. So in 100 years' time, there's going to be 8 billion people, not 9 billion people.
Yeah, and they called it the Great Reset. I don't exactly know what happens, because I'm not if you will, a person who sees the future. I don't know what the title is for those people, but obviously historians look at the past. But who are the people who look forward? Global economists or something? Futurists, yeah, maybe.
Globalists.
Yeah, sounds right. That sounds about right. Now, you're not wrong, Michael. I've heard this too, and I've heard that generations from millennials downwards are not producing the amount of kids as our previous generations did, like the baby boomers, hence how they got their name. But it is obvious that in order to create a community that takes care of itself, we do need to produce more people to take care of more people, because we're living for longer, which is actually really good that we do. Someone at work one time mentioned that we don't have enough space for these amount of people. We're overpopulated, and I said to him at the time, he was wearing a woolly hat. I said, "Did you make that woolly hat?" And he said, "No." And I said, "But someone did. Do you know them?" He goes, "No." And I said, "Yeah, cool. What about your shoes? What about your socks? What about your what about the place we're actually in, the building we're in? Someone somewhere had to be born to create the things that you have, and that's how they serve the community. In essence, if you start getting rid of the numbers, right, you may find yourself without these things, because there isn't enough people contributing to the luxury of life that you live. So the more people there are, the better there is, because there's more people to help contribute. We can have more farmers, we can have more builders, we can have more hat makers, if you will. And I saw it as a good thing. I see it as a good thing that the population is growing, but we do need to produce more and more and more. You may also find that as well, that those previous generations, they weren't so open to the fact that we now have same-sex marriages, and people are open about their preference to attraction, who they are attracted to and who they want to spend the rest of their lives with, thus probably creating less children. Because if you have same-sex couples, it is in essence not impossible, but it just isn't natural for you to have children. How could you possibly, because you can't.
Yeah.
And the more of that happens, obviously the less we will breed. So that could play a part, I suppose, because it's being more globally accepted, rightly so. But it, in essence, is it going to help sustain the human race? We don't know, but that could be a limit, a factor of it. Definitely. If the agenda of the ruling elite is population control, then I understand to release a pandemic to inflict fear on people and try and do it that way without being so obvious about, shedding the numbers. Not to say it's a good thing. It just should just be, in essence, transparent. Do you get what I mean? It's hard to accept it. We can have this conversation because we're capable of having this conversation, but do you believe the masses could actually accept this needs to happen?
No.
No.
So how do they make it happen?
Secret.
Let's imagine now that the human race has a standard IQ. Let's take 100 people as an example. I know there's 9 billion, but let's take 100. Out of that 100 people, how many do you believe score a high IQ and how many do you believe are under? As a mean average, let's just say it's 50. Right? Let's just
Well,
say
the
it's
average is 100.
But the average IQ for a person is 100.
Yeah. In a group of people, the average IQ is 100.
Okay, so if we take 100 people, out of those 100 people, how many are above the average IQ of 100?
Probably not that many.
Not that many, probably about 10%, which means 90%.
I was going to say 10%.
10% are above the average IQ of 100. Therefore, the average IQ of 100 would roughly be, let's say, 30%. 30%, which now leaves us with 60% of people who are under or the average IQ of 100. The 60% outweigh the 40% left. And out of that 40%, only 10% are above because all the rest are average. So if I pose a question that requires an answer of a average or above average IQ to figure out, 60% of those people, my breath is wasted on. Do you get what I mean? And that's a lot of people. Now let's times that by the globe. We times that by the globe. We are fighting a very, very difficult fight because 60% of the people cannot fathom what we're trying to show them, what we're actually trying to help them see, because they just cannot. They're not smart enough to understand. So it's not that we're wasting our breath, because we're obviously having a conversation that
they just don't have the brain capacity to understand and to fully kind of grab the concept of what we're saying.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and then the dangerous thing is, because then they believe what they've understood,
Mm-hmm.
and then they want to tell other people it.
Mm-hmm.
Then that is what spreads.
And so the
fake
same
news.
level of understanding spreads.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like wildfire.
Now, I want to ask you a question. If you are a leader in a position to govern people, and you've done it for a long time, and you understand the math, you understand the numbers, you will be making decisions that only 10% of the population will actually understand, because the rest of your decision making or the rest of your conscious thinking is wasted on 60%.
Not understood.
It's not understood. Now, imagine if you are a leader in a position to make a decision that is actually going to be for the benefit of everybody, but 60% of the people for so long have created their own thinking and they've talked about it with each other. So they've built their own, if you will, society's view or belief systems or deep-seated conviction that this is how it is, this is how it is, this is how it is. It is damn near impossible to change that. Liz, you highlighted a saying before in one of our previous episodes that it's easier to fool
It's
a person.
easier to fool somebody than it is to convince them they've been fooled.
Exactly. It's easier to fool someone than it is to convince them they've been fooled. So even if, like I mentioned earlier this episode about the acid and alkali in the human body, and I said to someone, if you want to increase your alkaline in your body, just switch to a plant-based diet for 30 days, see the difference. 60% of people cannot fathom that. It is impossible. They will not hear what I just said.
Yeah.
They will already have in their minds the thought process of, nah, it can't be. We've lived like this for so long, omnivore, I'm a meat eater, I'm a carnivore, and I'm not dead yet, red head's here. And I'm like, I know you're not dead yet. I know. But let me just ask you, are you vaccinated? Are you, let me just ask you, like, how do you feel knowing that you've had this vaccine and yes, you are still alive, but your heart is at risk of being inflamed? Now, I get it. You're not a vulnerable person. You're not above the age of 80 and you're not elderly, but you do understand that people your age, have died, and I'm not saying that you're not a balanced pH of 7, alkaline acid, but in the highly likely event that one day you might consume a lot more acid than normal, and you just happen to be around a disease, germ, bacteria, do you see yourself as vulnerable? This conversation I shouldn't even waste my breath with, because the person cannot fathom. Do you get what I mean? It's a waste of breath. So I'm glad that we can have this conversation.
Never
Like, I'm very,
stop.
very
Never stop, because I think sometimes, like, when the evidence changes, some people do change their minds, and that's good. That's what we want. And there are people, we all have different limits as well. And I think that, you know, I know people personally that during the lockdown and everything, they found what I was saying and what I was sharing very strange. They thought I was being very silly, and they were like, you know, the government wouldn't do anything dangerous. The government are doing their best, and all of that. But now, 2 years on, now that more and more is coming out, you know, from the government, from the FDA, from all these different companies, you know, things are getting leaked. Information is that the data and the hospitalizations and the adverse reactions, the yellow card scheme, it's all mounting up. And now I have those same people come to me and say, do you know what, something's not right. So it's took different people, different things to happen. Some of these people have actually had somebody close to them that's quite young in their family that has had a health issue due to the vaccination, and it's took that for them to wake up. You know, some people, it's been purely the data, the ridiculous propaganda on the news. They're like, what? You know, the silly things they're saying. Like the other day, somebody said to me that they've been following the narrative this whole time. I saw it on my Facebook status on Facebook. That I've been following the narrative the whole time. I've been injected with the jabs. I've took every single thing, including the flu shot. Then I see something today in the news stating that unvaccinated people are more likely to have car crashes. That's it. I'm done. That's the most ridiculous headline. And it took for them to see the kind of coercion and the ridiculousness of the story, but also the discrimination against unvaccinated people. It took that one headline about car crashes for them to realise this is just ridiculous. Like, it can't go on anymore. So for me, going back to what you said, yes, the majority, once they have that level of understanding, they have that level of understanding. However, slowly but surely, people will have their limit and will wake up as different evidence shows itself to them at their level of understanding.
I think the curve of influence is around 3%. What does that mean? It means it takes 3% of a population or society or community to agree on something for it to have a knock-on effect for the rest of the society. Now, I don't know the number. I mean, we've reached 9 billion population globally, but we've all got our own different cultures, which is another thing that we need to try and help see, because we can't force someone of a deep-seated conviction of a culture to change, because it's not gonna happen. However, we shouldn't give up the fight, hence hashtag free the others, because what we're trying to do here is help breed a consciousness, a collective consciousness of 3% of the population to see. Because once you start to see, you are now shifting the narrative. You are now actually regaining your power again of what was, rather than being controlled. Because if the curve is 3%, all it takes for the ruling elite agenda of control is to convince 3%. If you can convince 3%, you've nailed it, because you now control the curve, you know?
And they know what they're doing with the smart devices and the distractions and the movies and the TV programs and the conditioning, the indoctrination. That's how they dumb down that true consciousness in everybody, and that's how they get to that level of understanding. The fact we have an average IQ of 100 is because of those systems they've put in place. They know exactly what they're doing, creating that level of IQ.
Yeah, like newsreels, yes.
Because if they create that level of IQ in the masses, they know that they can forever control the masses. So therefore, you know, they say that a lot of us only reach 40% of our potential in our lifetime. You know, why are we not smashing through to 60% and 70% and 80%? Because we're dumbed down.
One of the things as well, like back to what you're saying about how easily we are influenced by media and outlets and what we consume on a day to day, as well as being exposed as well to other people who can plant seeds or words are spells or even just energy transfer. I mean, if I could, I would probably spend about a week in isolation just to regain power, because one thing I've found being exposed to a lot of people in a day, I'm just constantly bouncing off, rubbing off energy to the point where I get home and I'm physically exhausted, especially as a bit of an empath person. Like, I'm so sensitive. I've had to learn to build resilience just to face the world. I can't stand going shopping in supermarkets. I much prefer click and collect because I don't have to do that. Like, one of the things that I always do if I have to go into a supermarket is headphones in and sunglasses on, because I don't like, whether people know this or not, it's a spiritual thing, it's a deep thing, but eye contact is a very, very powerful way to transfer energy. And also with the frequencies that are going on, I don't know about if you know this, but constantly radio waves are happening right now in frequencies that we can't hear. It takes a radio to pick it up, but we still are influenced by it. Do you get what I'm talking about? Putting your headphones on, do you ever feel like you're just in your own zone? What you are potentially doing is putting in earplugs, and then you're obviously listening to music with a frequency that makes you feel better. Hence why a lot of people know this but don't know this. You know, they know, why is it when I put my headphones in and I go for a walk, I'm in my own little, it's because you are blocking out all of that shit noise that you don't need in your life. Whereas when you're outdoors, you're fully exposed to it. Even in your own home, you're fully exposed to it. But that's a whole nother episode for a whole nother thing. Back to numbing the brain power of the masses is, again, sort of rubbing shoulders with how I mentioned earlier about breaking down the willpower of the masses. If you can create a society of people who are just on the brink of survival, if you will, just have enough energy to go out and survive, i.e., go to work, come back. But when you come back home, you are so exhausted that you won't invest your time in education and higher learning. You don't even, sometimes some people get to the point where self-care is second priority. They don't really care about it. The priority is just making sure they're ready to go to work the next day, hence creating zombies, you know. And it's a heartbreaking thing, but it's a truth. Like, I believe sometimes in my life I feel that way as well. Like, I no longer have the will to fight. I can't be asked. I'm too fucking tired, and it is what it is. I always give these excuses. So
I think that's how they were able to implement what they did, because people were so people are tired to fight.
Yes,
they're absolutely shattered. So put the will of fear in them, and it's like, oh, I'll do whatever you say, just that I can keep this, mundane life of going to work, coming home, and it's almost like, as well, like, a lot of people aren't physically, they don't have, they're so tired when they get home from work. They don't, like you say, they don't invest in themselves education wise. Not just that, they don't invest in themselves health wise. They'll sit and they'll munch loads of food and eat loads of takeaway because it's easy and it's quick. And I get it, they're just watching the TV and they're tired and they've got to do it all again the next day. So these people also aren't, they're slowly pumping into themselves this bad stuff, this processed stuff and pharmaceuticals. And it's like they're getting more and more down and down and down. And they, I can see a cup there, Jules.
yeah. Someone
and
said they love the mug.
So they're not physically strong or mentally strong to actually put up a fight.
Yeah.
So that then there you get, the whole enslavement. It seems the easy way out. Creature comfort and all of that.
I can't act like I'm not one of them sometimes, because it takes.
Well, we're all in the system, aren't we? We're all in the system.
It takes one to know one, and I just want to highlight, we're not trying to be sanctimonious here on this podcast.
No.
All we're doing is just like having a conversation, which I'm very, very grateful that you guys are tuning into, almost like flies on the wall. And I hope you like it. If you do, hit the comments, hit the like button as well. And if you haven't done so already and you're listening this far, just subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Elite Thinking Club. We're there. So thank you. We appreciate it because it's helping grow the channel. You're absolutely right, Liz. I hate the word victim. It's not fair. I shouldn't use that word. It's not right. I am my own worst enemy sometimes. I know that I should be burying my head in the books. I know that I should be investing in my health a little bit more physically. And I know that what's going on around me. I could do so much more with what I've been given, which is a voice. I have a voice and I should use it more. But then sometimes I sit back and just think, what's the point? What's the point? You know, is there any point? And then I just
But
need a little
if everybody thought like that, nothing would ever move forward. So thankfully, not, you know, that we need. I get what you're saying, because we all have days like that. We all have days like that.
Yeah, and then I always get reminded though, what's the point? I'm just one person said by billions of people.
Exactly.
That's the point.
Yeah.
We spoke about you know, earlier about gas and electric before we went live. And one thing that's been discovered recently in America is they've managed to create sustainable energy. Now, don't quote me on this exactly, but this is what I've heard. And I'm very honored to have a friend like my friend who's actually been on this show before. We had him as a special guest, Luke. He said that, Jules, they've found that when you split the atom, there's things inside it. I don't know what they're called, neutrinos or something. And what they do is they create energy. So when you put those, say it's like 3 kilojoules or something of energy, they put it into this cylinder where there is already neutrinos in there. And on the other end of it, when they extract it, there's actually like 4.5 kilojoules. So what they've managed to do is create this has never been done before, and they've invested a lot of time and money into this because it's obviously the pinnacle of like what we've always tried to achieve, which is self-sustaining energy. 3 goes in, 4.5 comes out, right? So we're adding 1.5 each time, which is a fucking Nobel Prize, you know, all them big winning things. Basically, if you put the 4.5 back in, out comes 6. Do you get what I'm saying? So what we have done is something we've never done before. This is incredible. This is like we had this conversation, me and Luke, and he goes, but it's quite scary because how many people are going to be exposed to this truth? How many people are going to know about this? Are they going to release this? It'd be great if they do, because then we will no longer need to pay for energy. This should be free and available to all. We could actually live in a society where we're just creating more and more energy. If anything, it will actually boost our ability to expand, because rocket fuel to send ships into outer space, they rely on fuel. Whereas now, if we had something that could just create its own energy, if you can create a ship that only needs, in essence, times it by, I don't know, 100, you put 300 in, out comes 450. If it runs on 150, done. Do you get what I'm saying? They can just keep it going. Then the conversation evolved and it went a little bit deep, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, but it's just interesting because I don't want to keep talking about the same thing. Artificial intelligence apparently will exceed us in intelligence in about 20 years' time. That means there's no going back. It will always be smarter than us. If artificial intelligence figures out that we figured this out, it now has a sustainable energy to keep it alive. It no longer relies on us. Do you get what I'm saying? It knows how to create this, therefore could create this, which took us on a tangent to are we in threat of being completely wiped out by AI? If it realizes now that we don't need humans to sustain us, we can self-sustain. Will we be vulnerable? Which I don't think is going to happen, but it was just a thought. What do you guys think?
I personally think it won't. Just because they need to have the capability of understanding that in the first place, which they may be smarter than us, but being smart and being capable of, because that more involves emotions rather than just smart. Like, my computer is probably smarter than me, but it's never tried to revolt against me because we've set it parameters and it can't go out of those parameters. So unless they get some sort of higher thought process, which is hard to get because you need a conscience to have that. So it could be the smartest thing in the world. If it hasn't got conscience to think about that,
hasn't
then
got.
Yeah.
in essence, what you're saying, Michael, is that if someone puts a mask of a duck on their face, it's a person wearing a duck mask, whereas AI will recognize it as a duck with a human body. It wouldn't know. Okay, so that is interesting. I like that, Michael. Yeah, man. Liz, what about you?
I don't think that, with regards to the energy thing you were talking about, I don't think that they would want that to come about because of the billions of currency, billions of pounds, dollars, whatever, that these energy companies make from charging people. So I would love to think that people would start being able to be, sustainable and not have to be charged. That's the dream, I think, for most people. But I just think that it would take away so much control.
Yeah. Well, Elon Musk has been on about it for ages. If you build a solar farm, and he said it's not even got to be that big. Like, we've got the land for it. If you do it big enough, it can power the whole world. He said this years ago.
Yeah.
But they haven't done it.
Because energy comes from the earth. It's free.
Yeah. So he said about this years ago. It's
and
just,
they bloody charge us.
They make too much money in order for them to do it.
Exactly.
I understand what you're saying.
Why don't we learn this at school? Why don't they teach us how to build our own little solar things? And why don't they teach us how to like be sustainable and grow our own fruit and veg? And why don't they teach that?
Because
I know the answer.
In here.
Because
if they teach us our rights, we wouldn't want them taken away from us.
We wouldn't need them. We wouldn't need them to govern us.
The funny thing is, like, we have so much land mass around us. You can go for walks in local parks or even just like woods. You can go to the woods, and all it takes is for, like, I don't know, 1% of your community to take the seeds from your fruits and vegetables and just scatter them as you walk. Scatter them. They'll just start growing for free. But no one's really doing it. No one ever does it. And your back garden or your front garden, don't get me wrong, if you live in a flats, high-rise flats, you wouldn't have a garden. But for those that do, right there, you own land that you could potentially use to help benefit your community. Like, you say, right, I'm going to take care of the tomatoes, and you take care of the potatoes, and you take care of, what I mean? Everyone has their little bit of to do, and then the community will then be like, yeah, crops in, everyone share and share. You don't have to go to the supermarket here. And it's better because it's fresh. It's straight away going to be great. Now, I'm not a farmer, so I don't know what good soil is or bad soil is. And I don't actually know the season, but I could learn. You're absolutely right. If I took the time to practice and just learn the cycle, absolutely. But yeah, it's it's not even a case of having to do it naturally like that, because we now have systems in place like hydroponics, where you can have artificial growing environments in your own home. So it isn't even a case of this is impossible to do. It's not impossible to do. You can literally do it, creating the artificial environment to do it. So even if you do live in a high-rise flat or whatever, given that you can afford the electric bill for the artificial light, you can actually grow your own. And it's so doable. It's just, again, having 3% of the population on the curve to get everyone to do it. Because if you send your children to school where most people have learnt education, it's not really in the curriculum, and therefore it isn't even like you're influencing 3% of the population. You're influencing all of the population.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? So the curve is damn near impossible. So it's very, very important that education is at home also. But then that also brings me to what we already spoke about, which is the willpower to fight. It's exhausting to be alive now, and that's okay to say. Okay, we've had conversations about this in the past.
It is.
I've done TikToks about this in the past. Like, at one time in my life, I almost lost my shit. Like, I lost my mind because I know what needs to be done. I do. It's just a case of whether or not it's going to be worth it. Do you know what I mean? It's hard. It's hard. I mean, online communities are there. They exist. Influencers are there. They exist. I just hope they're there for the right reasons, because our biggest threat to our mental health is the constant control agenda from the media.
Yeah.
It's so many different generations have a different perception of the world as well. You can come from the baby boomer generation where you've spent 30 to 40 years of your life believing something, and then only to be introduced to a modern world where that no longer exists. And it almost threatens everything you know. So it's impossible to see it any other way, because that's what you've known for 40 years. That's how it's always been done, and that's how it always is. It's impossible for it to fail. It can't fail. It's happened. If you saw something working for 40 years only to be shown in the 41st year that it didn't work, you probably wouldn't even see it. You'd be so blind. Morpheus said to Neo, when Neo came round eventually, that we have a rule, and we never free a mind that is past a certain age. Do you remember Morpheus saying that to Neo? Do you know the Matrix? Yeah?
Yeah, I don't remember him saying it.
Morpheus is sitting up facing one way, Neo's laying down, kind of in a flipping child pose. Not child pose, in like the fetal position, like a fetus position. He's just laying on the bed, just like, what the fuck? And Morpheus is like, I'm really sorry, I have to apologize. But I love The Matrix. It's a great documentary. But it's it's real. It's real. But anyway, great conversation tonight, guys. Like, really appreciate the input. Really appreciate you guys being here, and all the viewers watching right now. Like, without you guys, it just makes it. It just makes us feel better that you guys are watching and you guys are listening, because you never underestimate. You can't change everyone, but just never underestimate the power of planting a seed. What you take away from whatever we spoke about.
So important.
Yeah, being a fly on the wall. All three of us, we haven't had our vaccines. We haven't had the COVID vaccines. This is why the Elite Thinking Club started, because we were part of the, if you will, rebellion. We were part of the resistance. We were part of the, what? Are they actually trying that now? And I know, Liz, you went to all of the marches in London, and, not just London, but yeah, it's really, really powerful. Powerful. You're my freedom fighter, Liz. Love that.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Yin and yang, you keep me balanced. But it's it's a time now where, although we're hibernating because we're natural animals and it's winter, don't lose the fight, is what I'm trying to get at. Don't allow ourselves to forget what we've just been through. It's too easy to get back into the cycle of what used to be, but we're no longer where we used to be. They want to bring back what we used to be, but we can't allow that. We've evolved since then. We should be embracing hybrid work-life balance. We should be trying to keep pushing education on nutrition, and we should also, if anything, looking for solutions. We need more solutions, rather than people pointing fingers and blaming and people playing victim. We've got to try and empower everyone we meet, which is hard to do, because like we've highlighted throughout this whole episode, the 3% curve, the 60% under the IQ, all of that, you're going to be meeting people who are not going to be ready to hear what you have to say. But just make sure that you don't waste your breath. Find those that are on the same wave as you. Your vibe attracts your tribe. The frequency will draw them closer and closer. And just do not give up, because that's what they want us to do. And when I say they, I'm talking about the ruling elite control agenda, which has been, by the way, established way before our lifetimes. This was always part of the play. This has been written by the past, and it's always passed on to the next generations, the next generations, the next generations, who, if you will, take up the throne. But we as the people have always had our leaders. They've always come in different forms, and they've always said the same thing in their own way. The popular ones, your Michael Jacksons, the popular ones, the Princess Dianas, the Tupac Shakur's. It's Dr. Sebi, name dropping here, that if you really look into what they were trying to say, they're honorable people, but they're just like you and I. And it's hard for them, because the media will do whatever they can to portray them as crazy. Hence Kanye West, Michael Jackson, Princess Diana. You know what I'm saying? And it's really important that we see through that bullshit. Trust your intuition. Okay.
So we've had a comment on Twitch.
Yes, comments. Let's hit some comments.
Yeah. So I can't read his name. I think he's Warned, but he said, Stop chasing butterflies because they'll fly away. Instead, build a beautiful garden so they can come to you. If they don't, you already have a beautiful garden.
It's a good quote.
I like that quote. I like that a lot, actually. It's reminded me of a story about how you already have the power, but it's what you choose to do with it.
Yeah.
There was a man who took a lot of pride in his garden, his front garden, and his house. He was house proud, and he would spend every day going out checking on his garden. He would tend to the flowers. He would, you know, mow the lawn, all that good stuff. And he had a very beautiful front garden. One day, another man was walking past him whilst he was out tending to his garden, and the man looked at him and said, "Wow, God has really blessed you with a beautiful garden." And the man stopped what he was doing and said, "You know what? You're right. But you should have seen it when he gave it to me." So we have everything we need, right, to succeed. It's just what we choose to do with what we've been given. And
love
really, really good.
Love
Really,
that.
really good.
All the wisdom.
shout out
Soak
to
it
you.
up.
I love tonight's episode, like I did the last episode and the episode before, and all the episodes we've done in the past. If you're new to the Elite Thinking Club, then please head over to the YouTube channel, check out some of our episodes, and just let us know what you guys think and indulge. Really, really indulge. We've had a lot of conversations about a lot of different things. Find one, just have a listen, like you've just done tonight. Love that. Liz, Michael, is there anything else you want to add to tonight's episode before we wrap it up?
No, I can't
Just-
think of anything.
Remember your power, people, and stay free.
As a first-time reader, sorry, thank you, Liz, Michael. Comment here. As a first-time reader, what book would you recommend on Dr. Sebi? First, I'd just say, go on, Liz. Sorry.
I've got 2 of his books. I've got, let me just go and find them. So I've got his treatment book, which is basically treatment through the food that we eat and how, you can naturally treat your body. And I've got the herbal dispensary one. So the herbal dispensary one is that one.
Mhm.
And that's got a lot of really, really useful information. The power of the alkaline herbs, detox your organs, boost your immunity and restore your health. And the other one I have is the treatment book, which is that one. It's the smaller one, and it's all to do with treating your body through your food.
You got a big thank you there, Liz, from Deanna.
Highly recommend those 2 books.
I love that.
I learned a lot through those.
Okay, so maybe we'll do another episode next week, same time next week, 8:30 on a Monday night, about how you can alkaline the body. We'll have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. All
Okay,
right.
cool.
Love
I'm down for that.
We're there? We're there.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, well, everyone, we're going to be here same time next week, Monday night, 8:30, TikTok Live, or on the YouTube. If you want to, head over there now. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. And that's it, I suppose. Right, Liz, Michael.
It is Boxing Day next week.
Oh, good shout, Liz. See,
Yeah.
This lady, come on. Yeah, it is
Keeping you boys
Boxing
in
Day.
check.
So I suppose we will have to decide what we're going to do. I mean, I'm not even available, I don't think.
No,
Damn. Okay.
it's okay.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Shall we maybe hold fast till the following Monday?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably have to.
We'll probably have to. Okay, so everyone enjoy the festive season, which is awesome because it's community. It's about family. Well, it's about whatever you want it to be. I'm not going to keep talking anymore. I feel like we won't be here next week. We're going to be here the following week. But again, if you want to, head over to the YouTube, hit a comment because I will respond to you. And just make sure you're here this time in 2 weeks' time when we go live again. So happy days. Right. Thank you so much.
Have a great
everyone
Christmas,
for being
everybody,
here.
and a great New
Yeah.
Year.
We love you. And
Thanks
as
for
always,
watching.
everyone everywhere,